Do you know what is the sweetest flattery in all the world? It is that flattery that Caesar's courtiers of old gave to him, when they said Caesar hated flattery, being then most highly flattered. We do not hate flattery, any one of us. We all like it. We do not like it if it's labeled flattery, but we like it if it is given a little underhanded fashion. We all love praise. The proud to gain, it toils on toils endure. The modest shun it, but to make it sure. We all love it, every soul of us, and it is right and meet that we should all bow before God and acknowledge that pride which is woven into our nature, and ask Him to teach us what little things we are. Now the Christian may remember that little though he be, God is with him. God will help him, and that right early. Brethren, I like a man who, when he begins to do anything, is afraid of himself, and says, "It is of no use. I cannot do it." Let him alone. He will do it. He is all right. The man who says, "Oh, there is nothing in it, I can do it," will break down to a dead certainty. But let him begin by saying, "I know what I am at, and I feel confident I cannot do it, unless I have something more given to me than I feel today." That man will come back with flying banners, the trumpets proclaiming that he has been victorious. But it must be because he puts reliance upon help promised. Now, Christian, I see you this morning ready to run away from the battle. You have been so dispirited this last week through divers adverse circumstances that you are ready to give up your religion. Now, man, here is a brother comrade that is passing through just the same. He comes here this morning, half inclined to run off to Tarshish like Jonah did of old, only he could not find a boat, or else he might have sailed away. And he has come here to pat you on the shoulder and say, "Brother, do not let you and I play deserters after all. Let us up to arms and still fight for our Master, for the promise says, 'I will help thee.'" Brother, what an all-sufficient promise that is! "I will help thee." Why, it matters not what God has given us to do. If He helps us, we can do it. Give me God to help me, and I will split the world in halves, and shiver it till it shall be smaller than the dust of the threshing floor. Aye, and if God be with me, this breath could blow whole worlds about, as the child bloweth a bubble. There is no saying what man can do when God is with him. Give God to a man, and he can do all things. Put God into a man's arm, and he may have only the jawbone of an ass to fight with, but he will lay the Philistines in heaps. Put God in a man's hand, and he may have a giant to deal with, and nothing but a sling and a stone, but he will lodge the stone in the giant's brow before long. Put God into a man's eye, and he will flash defiance on kings and princes. Put God into a man's lip, and he will speak right honestly, though his death should be the wages of his speech. There is no fear of a man who has got God with him. He is all-sufficient. There is nothing beyond his power. And my brethren, what an opportune help God's is! God's help always comes in at the right time. We are often making a fuss because God does not help us when we do not want to be helped. I have often cried to God and desired that I might feel happy before I began to preach, that I might feel I could preach to the people. I could never get it at all. And yet sometimes God has been pleased to cheer me as I have gone along, and given me strength that has been equal to my day. So it must be with you. God will come in when you want Him, not 1 minute before, nor yet 1 minute later. I will help thee. I will help thee when thou needest help. And oh, brethren, what an ennobling thing it is to be helped by God. To be helped by a fellow man is no disgrace, but it is no honor. But to be helped by God, what an honor that is! And so must the Christian say, "My God, dost thou command? It is enough. 'Tis done. Thou never didst send us to a warfare at our own charges, and thou wilt never do so. Thou wilt help us, and be with us to the end." Before we can do much, then, we must know our own weakness and believe God's strength. In ancient history, there is a story told of a valiant captain whose banner was always foremost in the fight, whose sword was dreaded by his enemies, for it was the herald of slaughter and of victory. His monarch once demanded of him that he should send this potent sword to him to be examined. The monarch took the sword, quietly criticized it, and sent it back with this message: "I see nothing wonderful in the sword. I cannot understand why any man should be afraid of it." The captain sent back, in the most respectful manner, a message of this kind: "Your Majesty has been pleased to examine the sword, but I did not send the arm that wielded it. If you had examined that, and the heart that guided the arm, you would have understood the mystery." And now we look at men and see what men have done, and we say, "I cannot understand this. How was it done?" Why, we are only seeing the sword. If we could see the heart of infinite love that guided the man in his onward course, we should not wonder that he, as God's sword, gained the victory.